First one, thank you very much again along those lines. Thank you for being a co-sponsor of Senate Resolution 246, which recognizes Hispanos and such in the United States and in Mexico. You want to comment on that?
Our history is who we are, and in New Mexico we have such an amazing history, and we're the state with the largest Hispanic population in the United States today, and we need to remember that, and we need to preserve our history and make it a part of all of us.
And the contributions to Senator.
Exactly.
There's
throughout history.
Astronauts.
Today, obviously, but
different kinds of explorers, really.
That's right. That's
plus scientists too.
Well said.
You visited Santa Clara Pueblo today?
Sure did. Spent a lot of time in the Upper Canyon, looking at some of the restoration work that's being done there, as well as visiting the large projects on the lower part of the canyon. And a lot of progress being made. Obviously, that was such an amazing canyon. So many people have a personal memory and connection to it, and it's hard. It's hard to see a place like that change like it has. But at the same time, I am very impressed with the work that's being done there to restore the canyon to the kind of place we all want it to be. And also just the coordination that is beginning to happen that I think historically we haven't done well. And for many of these large-scale fires, one of the problems is you've got all these different government agencies, and they don't always work well together. And this is an example of where agencies have come together along with the Pueblo and worked as a whole instead of completely separate from one another. We need to learn from that, and we need to apply it not just to emergencies, but in all kinds of situations across the country.
Right, and there are plenty. Yeah. Exactly. So I'm glad you had a good time up. Did you visit the Puye Cliffs?
We did. Yeah, it's spectacular.
Good. Yeah,
Speaking of, another example of, New Mexico is just a place that has such a deep and rich history, and it's why so many people come here from all over the country and around the world.
Leading us right to the sportsman.
Yeah.
Want to comment on that?
You bet. So I'm the lead Democratic sponsor on the Sportsman's Package. My Republican partner in this is Lisa Murkowski, who is senior senator from Alaska, as well as chair of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee that I sit on. And one of the things I'm really pleased about in the package is the Hunt Act legislation that I first wrote when I was in the House to make it easier for sportsmen to be able to access public lands that over time we've lost access to, and to be able to use some of those Land and Water Conservation Fund dollars to get in to places that have been really inaccessible to people for many years.
How did we lose access?
It's just changing land use patterns. Oftentimes, a private land parcel changes hands. Somebody who was always granted access decides to lock the gate. Sometimes the county in a certain place can't afford to maintain a road anymore, so they give it up. And that road was the only way to get to isolated BLM lands or a piece of the national forest. And so we've never really had a holistic way of paying attention to that, and this forces the agencies to keep a log of those places you can't legally get to anymore and start to prioritize them and figure out how we get back into those places.
And the economic impact that the sportsmen make in New Mexico and across the country, really, and tons of jobs.
There's no question.
Multiplier of money and such.
Yeah. No, billions of dollars of impact in public lands, recreation and hunting and fishing. Not to mention 68,000 jobs in that sector of our economy in New Mexico alone.
Santa Fe Indian School and Bandelier. You care to comment on what you experienced there?
You bet. We had a great conversation at Santa Fe Indian School. I've had a chance now for a number of years to meet with their Leadership Institute students when they travel back to Washington, D.C. And so wanted to sit down and sort of get the strategic vision for that program. In addition, then we went up to Bandelier and actually did some service work on stabilization of some of the old pueblos there with a crew from Rocky Mountain Youth Corps, actually two crews, one of which was a all Pueblo tribal crew.
Really?
Where they're also going to get a chance soon to go out and see Chaco Canyon for the first time. And all of these young people from pueblos across New Mexico, plus one from Hopi in Arizona, had never been to Chaco. So after working and giving back in Bandelier, they're going to get a chance to do a camping trip to Chaco as well.
Bandelier and Santa Fe Indian School, you certainly got a ton of the Native American culture. And
yeah, it was. Learned a lot at both locations, and we're excited about some of the things that the Park Service is working on, and the Manhattan Project obviously is something that touched the lives of so many people in the valley here. A lot of people were part of the creation of the Manhattan Project and worked up on the Mesa, and to now have that recognized nationwide as an important piece of our history, I think is really important for the Espanola Valley.
It was on that trade agreement that actually got the support of several Democrats, about 12 or 14. They were on Facebook, they were all over the place. Here's the list. What do you think of that trade agreement and these trade agreements in general?
The challenge we have is that if you prioritize the economic challenges we have in the United States right now, the trade agreements that we have signed, you can argue that they've grown the economy marginally, but they've also had a negative pressure on wages. And a downward pressure on wages and the stagnation of wages has been, in my view, one of the biggest economic challenges that we've had in this country in the last 10 to 20 years. And I just don't think the upside was big enough to outweigh the fact that what we really need right now are higher wages for our hardworking families.
Do you think all trade agreements do that? NAFTA, CAFTA, et cetera, et cetera?
I don't think they have to, but the details are really important, and what the TPA did was it gave away the ability of individual senators to fight for their constituents and change the trade agreements. And so I thought it was a mistake to grant that sort of fast-track authority to this president or any other president, because it takes away my leverage to be able to do what's right for New Mexicans.
Exactly. I know. And what do you think? How do you think they got those Democrats to sign in on it or sign on?
The Democratic Party is a very diverse party,
yes, it is.
And there are certainly states where trade has been more of a benefit than others. There are states where their perspective is different. But if you look at the impact that some of these trade agreements have had, for example, on manufacturing jobs, which historically have been some of our best middle-class jobs in the country. I mean,
yes.
My mom worked in in garment factories when I was a kid. She worked in a wheel factory that was part of the auto industry. And those are the jobs that we have lost that were really such a foundation for the middle class. And so my perspective is just very different than some of those other senators.
That's right, and New Mexico doesn't have a whole lot of that in terms of exports and being part of the international trade agreements and such.
And we can still fight for better export policies locally here. We do trade a lot with Mexico to the south.
Yes, we do.
I've was recently down at Santa Teresa, and we'll be working to make sure that we maximize our capabilities there, but we still have to stand up and protect high-wage, middle-class jobs.
Exactly. Unemployment is the lowest it's been in many years, 5 point something nationally. And what do you attribute that to, that drop in unemployment at the national level?
Well, it's been a slow, continuous growth of the economy, and that is unequivocally good news that we've been able to continuously grow the economy over a number of years. The thing that worries me is that wage stagnation is still a very real problem. So even though more people are working, not very many people are getting raises. And so you don't have the level of economic security where people know people are employed, but to know that you're going to be able to send your kids to college, or that someday you're going to pay off your mortgage on that house so that you can retire. Those are the kinds of issues that I think we still need to focus a lot of our economic attention on.
Care to comment on the healthcare and how that's come along? I mean, either with it or...
I think...
And that'll be our last question this afternoon. I know you have a lot of business to have and places to go.
My hope is that with the new Supreme Court decision, that we can sort of turn a corner away from the partisan ideological battle over the health care bill and start to take an approach of saying, let's take a data-driven approach, figure out what's working, what's not working. Obviously, a lot of people have health care now that didn't before. That's a good thing. If there are things that aren't working and we can demonstrate that, well, let's change those without throwing the entire legislation out the window. That would be a much more pragmatic approach forward, and I'm hoping with the Supreme Court decision that we can move in that direction.
Right. True. Well, thank you, Senator.
It's a pleasure.
Glad you're here, and
Look
you
forward
come
to
back now.
doing
You're
it
here,
again.
as they say. And,
Absolutely.
Bienvenidos, y nuestra casa es su casa, Senador.
Gracias.